What's up everybody, how's it going? It's Berk, aka Dansgreat here, and welcome back to this Final Fantasy XII attack only adventure. We are almost at the end, my friends. My mission to complete the game and see the credits roll while only using the attack command in battle is almost finished, but we still have literally the most significant bosses of the game still to come, so let's get straight into it and see if we can complete this challenge in this episode. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to drop a like on these videos, they really do help a lot. And without much further ado, let's get into it and see what happened at the end of the Pharos. Okay then, so at the end of the last episode we took on yet another Esper in the form of Hashmal, and honestly things were relatively easy, and despite having quite a high density of boss battles in the Pharos, it was a very grindy and long section of the game, but we still managed to make it through okay in the end. I would say Pandemonium was probably one of the most interesting ones because of the physical paling and the sort of running around we had to do to stay alive, but outside of that one I would say they were relatively okay, and we were able to progress the story and make it to the top of the Pharos. And once we do that, our reward is yet another boss battle, and this time we are finally facing off against Judge Gabranth. He is a level 47 and has 64,049 HP. Now, he is not immune to oil and not immune to silence either. Looking at these stats, you would think that he's going to be pretty easy compared to the stuff that we've been facing. I mean, we've started to take on enemies that have over 200,000 HP, so let's take a look at how this one played out. As you can see from the menu, I did not come into this with any kind of special preparation. You can see that basically there's no buffs in place, other than things that you can already get from the accessories, so this was again like me coming in relatively confident and just seeing if we can sort of blast through him without having to go through the whole buffing process, because it really does take quite a while. So let's take a look. These three are doing a lot of damage. Redis as well, as we know, can do a lot of damage. He's got low HP compared to the rest, but he is quite a powerhouse. And then the two berserk physical attackers as well. So even though he's susceptible to oil, you can see here I don't really need to do much with that. The boys are doing a lot of damage. So we've got a few of these cinematic attacks that we can't really avoid. These were generally the attacks that I was afraid of towards the end of the game, because obviously they should be designed to be quite powerful and do a lot of damage, and it could potentially be unavoidable damage. And so how do we kind of recover from these moves? And are any of them going to be total wipeout? So we take like 4,000 or 5,000 damage, and basically there might not be a way around it unless we have like double HP or some extra buffs and that kind of stuff. So these were the only attacks that really kind of scared me. So here it comes. He did the kind of speech first, and then he was immune to magic, which doesn't affect us. And then comes this move. 1,327 on Balthier. I mean, okay, like it's not a huge deal, honestly. Now, let's see how he does towards the end. He is blocking some attacks and parrying, of course. Nice crit there from Balthier. But you can see, I mean, they're looking like they're overpowering him pretty easily. And all you need to do was get him down to 25% of his maximum HP, and you already win the fight. So this one, there wasn't too much to report. But then, Dr. Cid steps onto the scene. And another thing that's going to become increasingly problematic towards the end of the game is that we are going to have back-to-backs. And as you guys know, those are some of the most dangerous situations, because let's say you have buffs in Fight 1, they might run out by Fight 2 or Fight 3, and trying to kind of deal with all of that and maintain everyone's HP, because right now we can only heal basically 2 of our characters in battle. That's when it starts to become truly problematic. And so now we are going to be facing Dr. Cid and also the Esper Famfrit. So I'll give you the stats for those while we're kind of waiting for this scene. Dr. Cid is a level 50 and has 82,093 HP. He's weak to Holy, which we cannot exploit unfortunately, but oil also works against him too if we want to make use of it. And then he summons Famfrit. Famfrit is a level 52 and has 149,060 HP. Now the good news here is that Famfrit is weak to fire and weak to oil, so if we can get that combo going, we'll be able to do huge damage to Famfrit. So this is a situation where if you add up all of this HP, you end up with something more like 300,000 that we have to do pretty much in a single series of fights. So then it starts to get a lot more intimidating. So this is one where it's definitely worth seeing what happened. So actually, the first time I tried this battle, I did not manage to get through it completely. I will basically fast forward nearer to the end to save a little bit of time for this big final video, and you will see how it ended, and then we will come back to it and get the win that we should have got the first time. So as I say, I came into this one with no buffs at all. Now imagine the entire party had like bravery, had haste, had all of these buffs from the measures prepped in advance before this sequence. You can imagine how things might have gone. So let's immediately fast forward to the next attempt, and we are going to hopefully have a bit of an easier time on this occasion. We were already doing insane damage before we even had something like bravery on. I'm fancying my chances. Everyone's got haste. Now during this phase, you have to focus your attacks on Famfrit. Dr. Cid becomes basically completely invincible, so we have to take out Famfrit first. So I changed my gambits earlier this time to make sure that we go straight for Famfrit here. And this time I haven't used oil yet for some reason. So I think this time I made the mistake of not putting oil on. In hindsight, watching this back, I think I relied on my buffs and just keeping this team out there instead of using oil, but I really should have. Not sure why I'm not healing Ash here. Yeah, this took a bit long for me to realize. I think part of the reason I wanted to do it this way was so that I could just heal a little bit more easily. Because when Ash has the bombs equipped, she can't be healed. But still, should have gone in with oil instead. That did a lot of damage, and Ash is gone. And with her, the only means of putting oil on is also gone. But we switched to the Wormfire shot anyway. So for some reason, I don't even know why I wasn't on the Wormfire shot. It's just funny, it was one of those where like I did the preparations right this time, but I technically executed the battle worse. So yeah, I think if I had tried to put oil on from the start, it would have made a huge difference. But still, at this stage, I've got very highly buffed characters, and they're all pretty strong. So I'm still relatively confident here. Alright, let's keep going. See if we can finish off Famfrit. Because it has Protect, like automatically, obviously that really diminishes the damage we can do, and that's where oil just really overpowers it. Literally doing 3 times less damage than we were last time. Almost there. Right, he's wasting time casting haste. We're nearly done anyway, so hopefully it should be enough to finish it. And there we go. So now it's back to Cid, and this time we have more buffs. We should be able to take him down. So we should have taken out Famfrit much more quickly. I kept Vayne in reserve on purpose this time, so that I could bring in a character that I can heal for the finale. And this time Balthier has definitely a lot more HP. And I'm going to remove Fran from the party here. So there we go. Vayne has 9,500 HP, and Balthier is able to heal him as well. Both berserked. Taking the Gambits off Balthier, I'm just going to watch this time. Yeah, so the paling has fallen. Now we can start to hit him. So the first 2 hits didn't register, but now we can. Okay, not crazy damage, but Balthier once again is in danger. Just gonna keep waiting here. So if Balthier is able to heal himself again, like if the healer can heal themselves, it puts you in an even stronger position. Thankfully, Cid turned his attention over to the other 2 now. The second he attacks Balthier, Balthier is dead. But we're trying to get one more heal in before we die here. So you can see the buffs are really carrying through nicely here. And Vayne still basically has maximum HP, so we're looking pretty safe this time. So definitely wasn't still perfectly executed. I should have just used oil to steamroll Famfrit more quickly. but we still had enough buffs to carry things through. And so with that, we are able to defeat the Gabranth, Cid, and Famfrit gauntlet and make it out of the Pharos. That was basically it. From here, it is literally the finale of the game, should you wish to complete it. And so what I wanted to do was, first of all, because obviously at this stage, yes, I died once or twice to a few of the bosses, but I didn't encounter anything that was like seriously problematic that caused me to rethink things. And so I thought, well, we've pushed this far, let's just keep pushing and see if we can complete this game and get the credits rolling. And so let's move things along pretty much straight away to the Bahamut Sky Fortress to finish off this series. Just as a brief interlude before that, obviously at this stage I had quite a lot of money from all of the stuff I did in the Pharos, and so I replenished some of my items and I went to the shops to just buy like the highest level stuff that I could buy, especially for armor, before heading in for the finale. Other than that, we did have some new espers, so I had a look at the license board to see if it was interesting for anybody. The first decision I made was to give Vayne Shemhazai, because I wanted him to be able to use the guns. As you've seen, the guns with Dark Shot, they enable you to heal anyone who has a Demon Shield. And so this way, I could literally have 2 healers in my party, which is definitely what I wanted. Fran ends up getting Famfrit, and it is able to get a lot more HP as a result, which is pretty self-explanatory for any character that you have in a challenge like this. And Hashmal, there weren't too many like amazing options for him. I decided to basically give Hashmal to Ashe in the end. It gives her an extra swiftness, which, given her like generally high damage output, I feel like it was the best one out of the options that we had. The others pretty much almost had no benefit to me in this particular challenge. So that was how I used the Esper slots on the license board before heading into the finale. Alright, here we are. So this is going to be one of those places where basically, again, you're going to have a lot of enemies that are constantly streaming towards you. They are generally quite a high level, and in this particular challenge, I think it was the kind of one where I quickly realized that if you kind of hang around too long and try to fight everything all the time, it seems to be that there's definitely things that spawn indefinitely. And so eventually I kind of realized that it's probably best to try and just run through, and whenever I find any room to breathe, then just try to get my heals and my buffs in. So again, in the background you'll see some of these encounters, but honestly they weren't like super easy or anything like that. And so my policy kind of became to largely avoid them. On an individual level, I think you can take stuff out just fine, but because of the sheer number of enemies and the way that they constantly just keep coming wave after wave, it was one of those where over time, like they will kind of burn you out. And so you have to be careful like when to attack and how many. So you can see the 2 berserked boys there just took care of it very quickly. But like the next one is never too far away. You see another one coming in now. And so I healed outside a battle here before like the next fight triggered, but then there's already a new one. So you have to be kind of careful with how you play. The best chances tended to be like when you go into a new area, you get like a little bit of a breather. And those were the areas where I was able to, if I wanted to, get the measures back out and put some buffs back on, use some items to heal outside of battle, and that kind of thing. So in general, like that was the flow of this place, just a lot of kind of picking and choosing when to attack and when to just flee and run away and find windows to heal and rebuff. And so once we were done with that, it was time to move on to the next boss fight. Now this one is going to be the final battle we have against Gabranth. He is a level 49 and has 70,719 HP. Which again, compared to what we've been facing recently, is nothing too special. So on paper, this should be a pretty easy fight. Let's get into it and see how it went. Alright, so thankfully, in this little bit before you activate the lift, you do have a breather and you can actually buff everybody and heal them before you face Gabranth. So that's nice. If you've taken a lot of damage and you're kind of on the edge by the time you make it in here, at least you have a little window to restore things before the fight begins. Alright, here we go. As you can see from the menu, I'm taking this fully seriously this time. Everyone has the buffs that we hopefully need. And I'm going to go all out against Gabranth. Not give him a chance here. Even got some Hermes sandals on there. There's no one else in this fight, so they can go berserked as well. And you can see that HP is getting drained very fast. Yeah. So, I mean, we're looking pretty good for the finale here. We're doing absolutely huge damage. That was already like 30k or something in the space of like 20 seconds. It is always funny when like you have these sort of cinematic, like epic moments, but when you're really kind of OP and you're destroying an enemy, it just like never looks quite as cool. So Renew came in there, so to his credit, he did have a Renew up his sleeve. And here comes a cinematic move, but he's getting absolutely destroyed right now. Let's see if he does have any tricks up his sleeve that will cause us serious problems here. Yeah, over 1,000 damage, just over 1,000. But in general, not really strong enough to pose too much of a threat here. I'm not too concerned. Alright, he's enraging here. But we're doing the damage so fast, he's just not going to have too much time to really affect things. He's obviously going to attack more quickly, probably get more combos, all of that kind of stuff. But at this stage, we're just kind of outpacing him. So Vayne will probably get taken out here. Yeah, he does. But we still get the job done. And it's very, very easy to defeat Gabranth in this challenge, because obviously we're 3-on-1, very powerful at this stage, lots of buffs, and we get through without any problems. And so this brings us to the final boss battle of the Final Fantasy XII Attack Only challenge, and that is, of course, Vayne. So let's talk about what we're going to be facing here, because this is going to put together basically everything that we have been learning and working towards in this playthrough. Vayne has 3 different forms, and all of these forms are to be taken on back to back with no healing or preparation in between. And that is critical. That's one of the main reasons that this challenge becomes more difficult when you face this guy. Because obviously if you could heal and buff up in between, then it really kind of lowers the burden for the remaining forms. Now you can see here that you do get a window to make your final preparations. If you want to reapply buffs, if you want to heal and go into the fight at maximum power, which of course you should, this is the time to do it, because you will not get another chance. So basically, obviously, I took my time here, made my preparations, tried to go in as ready as I could, and let's just jump in to the first fight to set the ball rolling against the final boss battle of this challenge. Here we go. We are pulling out all the stops, and this time we have Larsa back on our side as well here. So a little bit of extra damage. Maybe he'll pull off like another crazy, insane 11-hit combo like he did in that legendary fight. Let's go. So this is kind of like the warrior monk version of Vayne, who tries to do most of his work by just punching you. So we got the silence on there, just as a little aid. Can also be blinded. Very confidently just kind of just like walking over to us. And well, I'm trying to keep my distance. Blind is hit as well there. So that's nice. Got the Assurer to do that. And now I'm just going to head to Platinum Dagger, go back to the Demon Shield so I can heal. Again, the main weakness that we have here is that Balthier cannot heal himself. And this is a problem. Well, he can heal himself, but at this point I still hadn't realized what I can do to get that heal in properly. So you'll see it in action soon, eventually, but for now at least I wasn't to know. Let's keep going. So here comes a special move. 76,755 HP here at level 50. So not a particularly intimidating number. We should be able to handle this. One thing I did not notice here is if Larsa uses any potions or anything. I kind of forgot to go into his his gambits and check. Oh god, watching this back, hope he didn't. See the damage. Okay, he was outside of the range of that Balthier, which worked out really well for us. We didn't take any damage as a result. So thankfully, it seems to me like Larsa didn't use any kind of potion or anything like that. It was attack only. And so the first form, as you might suspect, was pretty easy to deal with. And now we are going to move on to Vayne Novus, who is a level 53 and has 104,210 HP. Not only that, he also has these kind of extra swords slash weapons around him that I thought might be a problem. I wasn't sure how to deal with them. Whenever this kind of thing happens, it's like, do you take the little kind of extra weapons down first, or do you just ignore them and still attack Vayne? We'll see how I approached it for this. And thankfully, we also have Gabranth coming in to lend us a hand. So any kind of external help we can get here, I think we will gladly take. And let's start the fight against Vayne Novus, the second form of the final boss battle. Now you can see that my HP has carried through from the first form, so unfortunately it is one of those again where you do not get your HP back in between the forms, so you have to be very careful with that as well. So Barsh is already on the edge here. We've got these Sephiras, and as I say, I wasn't sure how I would tackle these at this stage. With my Berserk characters as well, it's also a problem because the Berserk guys will obviously kind of randomly go for any enemy here. So let's see how I approach this first one. I'm still going for the Sephiras here the first time, and depending on which one you go for, you end up, because each of them represent a different element, I went for the one that ends up absorbing fire, so I decided to basically go non-elemental, like instead of trying to play the game of elements here. Since Vayne still has a lot of HP, I'm not concerned with healing just yet. I just want to see if I can take out some of these Sephiras. So it's a bit of a wild fight at the moment, but we are taking some of them out. As you can see, there's only 3 of them left at this point. So they don't have a huge amount of HP, which is nice. And well, I figured this might be the time to do it, because early on in the fights, obviously, they have less of these augments and stuff going on. So it might be a better time to try and work on this kind of stuff. It was only attempt 1 after all. I wasn't completely sure what to expect here. So I noticed the Aquaga coming in, and this is where I can change some stuff. There's that Viking coat. I have 2 Viking coats, not 3. I could have brought a 3rd, I did not. Elemental immunity is going to play a role in this fight. So Barsh is almost dead here. And because these swords are just whizzing around everywhere, it is a little bit hard to keep track. So Barsh has finally fallen. And I decide to probably bring in Ash next. Let's see. No, I bring in Fran, because she's got the range, I guess. I'm going for... Instead of kind of running around after them, I'm trying to take them out more quickly by not moving. So we're still trying to take these swords out. We took the first few of them out pretty quick, but this set has been a little bit more annoying here. In the meantime, because of the berserked aspect, Vayne Novus is taking damage. It's got all of those buffs still going. So here, I deliberately remove people from the battle. So you can see Azure Vortis is charging up, and this attack comes in. So basically at this stage, I was trying my best to, if I could see some kind of cinematic or big attack coming, try to remove characters that I couldn't heal. So I left Vayne in here on purpose, because he's the one that can kind of tank the damage, and then also I can bring in Balthier afterwards and heal him. So we need to keep Balthier alive at all costs, because he is the main healer here, and so that's why I kind of did that whole kind of empty the battlefield before that move came in. So that was my kind of logic there. Now thankfully Gabranth took the hit for us, and I think Gabranth used a potion on himself. Damn it. Yeah, that's the one thing I did not check. I should have gone into their stuff. Spoiler alert, this boss battle ended up being a fail anyway, but that is something I've noted. There you go, managed to slow, so that worked. Yeah, so now I'm starting to focus my attacks back in on Vayne Novus here. Greater barrier is coming. Alright, here we go again. Inviolable will. So as I say, for these, if you're quick enough, I think a lot of times you can try and swap everyone out. I managed to do it the first time with Contempt. I got a little bit lucky, I think. I was trying to do it for the move before it, and then he kind of chained both together. But lots of big cinematic attacks, as you would expect from a final boss. Comes in. Looks very impressive. I was very afraid here in terms of the damage. 1,400. Okay. So at this stage, I really need to start bringing in Balthier and starting to heal here. And this is where, like, the one where you have to be very careful, because you're constantly switching around the different types of shots. If you get it wrong, and obviously you hit Vayne with a silent shot, you could just straight up kill him. So he puts up a magic barrier. Thankfully for us, that's not a problem. We don't really care about that. And now it's going to be, again, just try to see if we can keep Vayne and Ashe alive. And yeah, you can see now I'm starting to buff more in battle. So now I have a chance to potentially get some buffs in. Let's see if it's going to work. Lots of swapping and changing here. I saw the water spell coming in. Shell shield, I just keep it like that. And he's already got a Viking thing. So immunity there, you can see it. He's got his gambits on as well. Like, there's so many different things to remember. Like, swap to this, swap to that, take your gambit off. Change your like armor constantly to match whatever element's coming in. So just a lot to think about here. So I'm just really doing my best to minimize the damage that we're taking here. Okay, I really need to attack Vayne now. Get his HP doubled. Because again, we still have another form after this. So the bubble hits. That worked really well. And now he's trying to bubble himself. So this is the healer trying to heal himself. That failed. He's going to try again. Now the problem here is that he's taking 600 damage every time he tries. And this is where the battle started to go south. 3 hits and the bubble did not work. And as a result, he's put himself in critical HP. And this was basically the beginning of the end here. So unfortunately, we were doing pretty well until he tried to use Euclid's Sextant on himself and ended up doing damage to himself 3 times. So we were pretty unlucky because there's a 70% chance that it works. And unfortunately, didn't work 3 times in a row. And he ended up doing almost 2,000 damage to himself in the process. There was one thing we could do to remedy that, but that was something I didn't realize at this point, unfortunately. So I'm doing my best to kind of hang in there here, but this was not looking good. So I'm trying to get a few more buffs in before I die here for the final form. At least he's immune to that. Managed to get a bravery in on Ashe. So this is like the final touches here. One more attempt to use bubble on Ashe. Yeah, I really should have had his gambits off here. So the battle started to get a little bit out of control here. Like, as soon as the buffs went, and I had to try and reapply buffs while Balthier was so critical in terms of HP, this is where it started to get really out of control. This attack is insane. And with that... Yes, there you go. So that was a lot of damage, and both Ashe and Balthier are dead. So this was really the beginning of the end, because we still have another form to fight after this one. Alright, so it's my final 3 characters here. Let's see what they can do. No longer immune to magic, but that doesn't really matter. 2,000 damage there on Vayne, but still we managed to hang on and defeat the second form. So the second form is definitely like much more problematic because of the cinematic attacks that do a lot of damage as well. And to be fair, it's manageable because not a lot of elemental spells were used in that attempt, and we do have decent elemental coverage. But it basically all started to go wrong when Balthier tried to use Euclid's Sextant on himself 3 times and failed the 3 hits, and then basically the decline began. But despite that, like, it was a very sloppy, kind of not well executed phase 2, we still managed to get it done, and we have 3 characters alive for the final form. So let's at least start it, and I'll start to explain the fight a little bit, and then we'll see what happened. Okay, my friends, it is time to face the Undying, the final form of the final boss of the story. Level 55 and a massive 228,299 HP. This is off the back of obviously 2 other forms. There is no healing in between, no buffs in between, no breaks in between. You go straight into it. He's immune to everything, basically, in terms of like statuses that you can do. There's nothing left at this point. He has piercing spells. We've seen those before. They basically ignore reflect, which is really mean. He has an arm cannon attack which ignores defense, it's gun-based damage. And he uses piercing dispel on the character who has the most buffs at times as well. And to make matters even worse, does not have a health bar. You do not know how much damage you've done to him. In relative terms, you can figure it out in hindsight if you go and look up like his sort of enemy like battle script and that kind of stuff. You can see it, but in the heat of the moment, unless you know the battle really well, you won't know how much damage you've done to it and how close you are to winning. So here, I mean, it's looking very unlikely. We've got 228,000 to do, and we only have 3 characters and they cannot heal. Even on my first try, I still got to the Undying form. But depending on how this goes, it's going to be the case that we probably have to come back in with much better preparation here. So this is again the same idea as before. We're leaving Vayne to tank it. Normally, obviously, you'd have Balthier coming in here to kind of heal again afterwards. So we saw Divine Sword there, but then I didn't see anything happen. I thought it was going to be a cinematic attack. That's why I took them out. Ultimately, end up being not particularly useful. But I mean, already the 3 of us are piling on the damage, and quite early on, the Undying seems relatively slow. Now, Mega Flare's coming in, and this one was so fast that you can't remove anybody here. So we're going to feel the full force of this Mega Flare. Not good. So, decent damage, but nothing too crazy. Honestly, I expected worse. So our characters are holding up pretty well. The high-level armors that we have is generally helping, even without shell and that kind of thing. I think we did pretty well. So they're really piling on the damage here. I think this was a good effort from these 3. Considering this is like far from the optimal team to do damage. Piercing Firaga comes in, so if you do not have something that's sort of going to half the damage or make you immune, then you are going to be in big trouble here. So this is where things start to get really dangerous here. For fire, we have no way to make ourselves immune. We can only half it at best. So some level of RNG is going to play a role here, because obviously he can kind of pick between different elements. Some of them we're going to have full protection for, and some of them we're not going to have much at all. So kind of depends a little bit on what we're going to face here. So I, at the least, have something to reduce the damage down to a half. Now, in hindsight, watching this back, this is another one where I think I could have removed some people from the front line. But it seemed to work out pretty well. I didn't really see anyone take too much damage. There were a few times where I couldn't really follow what was going. Like I was looking at the text above, and it looked like a move was coming, and then it felt like nothing happened in the end. Anyway, a magic barrier goes up, and then a big attack comes in. Now, this guy gets even more problematic because at some point he puts up a magic barrier, which is not a problem. But then, if you can get deeper into the fight, he ends up putting up a physical barrier. Now, that attack was huge, and Penelo already died. Fran is going to get hit with a piercing holy here. This is going to hurt. And there is still something I'm ignoring here. There's an elephant in the room that I am not seeing. 2,665 damage. Piercing Dispelga comes in there. All of her buffs are gone unless they're kind of applied on the accessory level. Piercing Blizzaga. You can see how quickly the damage is being chained here. Really like strong back-to-back moves. We're weak to ice with that on. We need to change it quickly. Ice is another one. We can't make ourselves immune to ice. At best, we can just half the damage. So 766 when halved. But you can see a ton of juggling because he's like rotating through so many spells. We have to keep playing this game of going into the menu and rotating. But it's almost over. No longer immune to magic. That didn't last very long. Now comes Enrage and Bravery. I mean, we've put up a good fight. Considering we only had 3 characters to start this, I feel like we've done probably like 80 to 100k damage, something like that. Not bad at all. I already knew I was obviously coming back again, but I just wanted to see how long we could stay. Now, Force Barrier comes in, and now he is immune to physical damage. And this was the point where I was like, oh, I might be screwed here. Because, yes, okay, this attempt ends up failing here, but he goes into physical immunity, which means we are stuck, and we have to just stay alive. We have no choice. There is no way to do damage to him in this form. And so how can we make it this deep into this fight and then stay alive for like 2 minutes or however long it is when we're taking this much damage? And so we got a game over, but it went from feeling like, yeah, we could probably still power through if we come in with the right buffs and we execute properly, to, hold on a minute, we might be screwed. We have to do basically close to 300,000 damage to Vayne collectively, and once we do that, then he puts up a physical barrier for a couple of minutes, and he's going to keep bombarding you with obviously lots of attacks. You have to survive through that somehow, so heal enough to survive through those 2 minutes, and then you still have to try and get over the line after all of that. And so putting all of those things together, I started to realize that perhaps I am not ready to defeat this guy and to finish this run. So the question is, what do we do? At this stage, I was thinking, obviously, the main problem is starting to look like healing. We really cannot survive the final bit without healing in some way, because there is no way that I could tell to circumvent the physical damage barrier, and that would mean that you literally have to sit there and take damage. So you can obviously remove characters from the front line, so maybe have one character at a time or something like that, but the chances of me coming into that bit with enough HP and enough buffs with the characters to just basically tank almost every single hit for like 2 minutes straight and then come back and then try to win just felt incredibly unlikely. So we needed to go down the healing route, and this was where I did my final bit of exploration and inventory acquisition to prepare as much as I could for another attempt at the Undying. Now, this phase actually took me quite a long time, because 1 hour of it was spent trying to get a specific chest, and probably like another 5-6 hours or something like that was spent kind of going around the world to some of the more difficult places like the Subterra in the Pharos and trying to pick up some important things. Now, what I would do is basically talk about generally the kind of stuff that I picked up and how I decided to approach the final fight, and in the background again, the bits and pieces that I find from all of my recording that generally kind of shows what I did and what I picked up. I'll edit those in for you so you can get a general idea of some of the stuff that I was doing before I came back for another attempt, because this is going to be like 6 hours of recording condensed into like a few minutes. So that's, I think, the best approach. Otherwise, it's just going to take way too long. So we're talking about healing, and as you've seen, what has served us well up until this point is for a character to have a demon shield, and then for a gun user to use dark shot in order to be able to heal them. At this stage, we only had one demon shield, and I knew that there was at least a second one available in the Sorobi Steppe. Now, this one, in order to get this chest to appear, there is, from my calculations at least, a 1 in 200 chance of this chest actually containing a demon shield. There's a 1 in 5 chance that the shield appears, there's a 1 in 2 chance, there's a half chance that there's gil in the chest instead, and then if there isn't gil in the chest, there's a 1 in 20 chance that there is a demon shield in there if you have the diamond armlet equipped. And so even with the speed up mode, this took me 55 minutes worth of zoning in and out of this area in order to be able to get it, but thankfully in the end I did. Now, another reason I wanted to do this entire thing was also, if you saw, my levels were at 39 to 40 for the Undying. The Undying itself is a level 55, and I felt like I was starting to basically drop behind that sort of 10 level gap, which was generally the sweet spot for me. And I figured if I can at least pick up a few more levels while I go to these difficult areas and try to get these extra pieces of inventory, that would at least also obviously help me, because it would give me a little bit more natural HP, a little bit more strength, and all of that stuff. So it began with a lot of time in the Sorobi Steppe, and obviously every time I zoned in and out, eventually enemies started to respawn, so I was defeating a few enemies and picking up some stuff along the way as well. So Demon Shield was obtained, and that meant that it was a lot easier to just keep 2 people equipped with the Demon Shield and just basically kind of heal them both at the same time. That was step 1. But there were a few more things that I wanted to really improve my chances. The second was to obtain a second pouch of Dark Shot. I figured there might be some times where it might be better to have 2 healers out on the field at the same time. So 1 person with Demon Shield and 2 people using guns to heal that 1 person, depending on the situation. And so that was to be found in the Subterra, which is one of the most dangerous parts of the game. It's an optional kind of dungeon part of the Pharos, and if you go in there, you are going to be facing some difficult enemies indeed. So this is an area where, again, in the background, you'll see me kind of in there, and it followed that pattern of, like, when you're in a difficult area, you can basically defeat stuff one-on-one, but if you get ganged up on too much, or you go into too many fights back to back, then they will wear you down and start to kill you. So you have to be quite careful about picking and choosing when you fight. You have to find pockets to heal when you can, and if things get really dangerous, you have to flee, go back to the central elevator and go to the crystal to make sure you heal and put a save in. So in terms of survival, I was okay in the Subterra. It was definitely dangerous and I was dying here and there, but I had enough gil to buy lots of X potions and I had lots of Phoenix Downs, and with that we were generally able to stay alive and get the orbs that we needed in order to make progress in there. So I will give you guys a general rundown of some of the stuff that's down there that could potentially be useful that I wanted to pick up. And while I was generally researching what is in the Subterra, this was when it finally dawned on me. All this time I have been focusing my attention on healing by absorbing darkness. Because I have Dark Shot, I was always thinking, well, the only way I have right now to heal is to use that. But what I forgot was that I had recently picked up Euclid's Sextant, and yes, it does have the bubble aspect, which is what I was primarily focused on, but I kind of forgot that it also has a holy element attached to it. Now, usually the measures, they do such little damage because they're designed to be tools to buff that you never really notice the sort of elemental aspect, and even if you could heal with it, it's not really a meaningful heal. But when you put a few things together, you start to realize that if you equip a Sage's Ring, which can be equipped on anybody, of course, if you hit them with Euclid's Sextant, you get two benefits. The first is, of course, the bubble, which we've already seen in action, but two, if, let's say, the bubble fails to activate, you still end up healing them anyway. And so we now actually have a way to heal every single person in the team. It's only about 600 at a time, but every little helps, and the best part of it is that once bubble hits, you're going to get an extra benefit out of it because you're going to heal for 600 more HP, and then you're also going to double that extra 600. So basically the benefits of using Euclid's Sextant are amplified if the character being hit has a Sage's Ring equipped. And so up until this point, I already had a Sage's Ring, but I was kind of ignoring it because I was like, well, I don't have anyone that can use Holy anyway, so what's the point? But that allowed me to basically have two characters at any given time equipped with the Sage's Ring and to heal using Euclid's Sextant while doubling their HP at the same time. So a theoretical scenario here would be, let's say a character has 4000 HP and they have the Sage's Ring equipped. If Balthier goes in and attacks them, he will heal them for 600 HP. If they have over, say, 5000 max, they'll go from 4000 up to 9200 HP in a single hit, which is a massive heal. And this is fantastic because this means that, for example, Vayne could be a gun user in this case, and because he's double-handing for the gun, he won't be able to have a demon shield, but he can have a Sage's Ring. So you can put together these sort of combinations where, for example, Balthier can now heal Vayne, even though he doesn't have a demon shield, and Vayne can focus his healing on Ashe, and you can start to create these sort of healing triangles almost, where multiple characters can heal each other. And this is the kind of thing that I was looking to build in order to be able to survive the physical immunity form of the Undying. So that was absolutely crucial. Now, while talking about this, as I say, I'm showing you guys some more of the stuff in the Subterra. I'm not going to list everything specifically that I got because it was just hours of sped up gameplay, and even literally finding those few seconds where I found like something that could be useful was already really annoying to find in editing. But basically I'm trying to focus on some of the highlight stuff that I knew was going to be useful to me in a big way for the final fight. In the meantime, also I'll show that there was a fight against Phoenix down in the Subterra, who is a level 59 and has 134,089 HP. You can blind this guy and use oil against it, and so while I was exploring down there, I had to basically face it, and I decided to try and take it on anyway, and it wasn't too difficult to defeat, thankfully. There's two more elements left to talk about, no pun intended. The first is to pick up more elemental protection. This was done by, for example, buying enough diamond armlets so that everybody had coverage, because that gives you lightning immunity. You can also pick up stuff like the rubber suit in the Great Crystal, and so that's a really nice high-level armor for light armor users, and that also gives you an immunity to lightning, which is really, really nice. There was the armor that can give you water immunity that I only had 2 of, and I could buy another one of those to make sure I had complete water immunity for everybody as well. And so at this stage, I have water immunity, I have lightning immunity, I can absorb darkness with 2 demon shield users, I can also absorb Holy with Sage's Ring. So in the first attempt, Fran got hit with a piercing Holy, and I forgot to change her to the Sage's Ring, but that's not a mistake I'm going to make again, and you have 2 characters, for example, that could absorb it, and so you can kind of hedge your bets depending on who you think is going to be hit. So that's another benefit. And finally, other than that, there are some high-level weapons and armor. Things like the gold skullcap you can pick up. You can get the Mage Power Shishak, which is a high-level heavy armor that Ash can use, and you can pair that with the Maximilian, which you can also find. You can get the Renewing Morion, which is a high-level light armor that gives you a constant regen effect, and I thought any kind of regen effect, even though it's not particularly strong in this game, it could still potentially be useful, so I picked that up as well. And finally, I managed to pick up a couple of more powerful weapons, one of them being the Whale Whisker for Barsh, and I also, importantly, picked up the Arcturus for Balthea/Vayne, and this basically boosted my healing power by about 30%, because it's one of the more powerful guns that you can pick up in the playthrough. Now, I did know that there was, of course, one more gun, the Mithuna, that is the most powerful gun to pick up, but that one takes a little bit more legwork, and so for now, at least, I want to try my luck again with the Arcturus and see if that would be enough to get the win against the Undying. So I think that's generally enough of an idea. This did take me a long time in terms of recording, but these were some of the things that I managed to put together during that final exploration and inventory acquisition phase. And so with that, I am going to return to Vayne/the Undying and see if we can finally get over the line and complete this challenge. Okay, so I'm going to rejoin here like midway through my kind of buffing routine so you can see how things are going. This was obviously after I beat Gabranth, and I'm getting ready for the final battle once again against Vayne. So you can already see there's a few different things in the inventory that I've mentioned, and you can also see that my levels are definitely higher because I had to hang out in some of the most high-level areas that I've been in up until this point, like the Subterra, and I revisited Site 11 of the Lusu Mines, which also has higher-level stuff. I definitely was able to increase my levels a little bit. Now, because still in terms of healing, I felt like Vayne, Balthea, and Ash were probably the best combination because they still had the ability to equip demon shields and that kind of thing. Those are the 3 that I felt like if I was going to get through it, those are the ones that were going to need to kind of stay alive and try to form like this sort of healing, like Holy Trinity while the physical paling was up. Now, you're seeing all of these buffs, and one thing you might be wondering is, where is Shell? And it's a good question. This was one where when I kind of looked up how to get Shell, basically you need the arc scale, which is another measure that Balthea can use. And I looked it up, and to do that you need the Barheim key. And at this stage I'd already been a little bit fatigued from all of like the inventory hunting that I was doing. And I decided to basically kind of forego getting the arc scale for now. That was like another, if I bounce off again, I'm just going to go in and try to get the Barheim key and go get the arc scale. But for now at least I was like, you know what, like I'm just going to stick with whatever kind of elemental protection that I have and kind of hope for the best. So that is the one buff that I was missing. But as you can see here, I am almost ready for action, and everybody has all of the buffs that I can put at this particular point. And so you can see here, everyone has plenty of HP except for Penelo. Penelo is definitely the odd one out in terms of HP. I could not get it any higher. In retrospect, I probably, like, there's definitely been benefits to the job that she's had. Mostly being sort of another long-range character is definitely nice. And she's been able to avoid a lot of attacks, and so her low HP doesn't tend to get exposed too much. But obviously I think the harder the boss that you face, the more problematic it becomes, because they tend to have just big cinematic AoE attacks that just hit everybody anyway. And so obviously, like, towards the end, she got a little bit more exposed. But I would say that in general it worked out okay, but if I was doing this again, I would probably give her a different job. I would say something that maybe can use Mystic Armor, I think would have been nice. At least I can have someone who can naturally absorb Holy as an element, or someone who can use Holy, so that would have been nice. Okay, enough talk. Let's get into it and try to defeat Vayne. So here what I'm doing is I'm leaving Penelo out on the front line by herself, because obviously during this time your buffs are already being eaten away. And I think Penelo is probably still the least important character in this setup. And so if anyone's going to have their buff time drained, it should probably be her. Okay, let's get into it. Now I have to admit, the one thing again I didn't do here, I think, is check the gambits for the guest characters. So I'm literally watching this back for the first time since I did this session, and I'm really hoping that my guest characters didn't do anything that basically kind of ruins the challenge. If they do, I'm going to be pretty sad. I'm trying to save Ashe for later on, so I don't want her to kind of lose her buffs and that kind of thing, so I'm going with a slightly weaker team here. I'm trying to have my kind of more healing characters on at the end, so that's why I've gone for this team. But you can see the damage here happening very, very rapidly, which is a good sign. So he basically got one attack in, and he's already doing this little scene. So that's the general idea. Use my characters that are less able to heal each other for the first two forms, and try to reserve Balthier, Ashe, and Vayne for the final form if we can. So again, cinematic attacks. These are annoying because you basically kind of can't bypass them. It's kind of like a hard trigger almost. When they get down to a certain level of HP, it's just going to happen. So hopefully, like, these guys didn't end up doing enough damage for my guest characters to kind of destroy the run. I think you're going to see that, like, regardless, let's say one of them did happen to use a potion, it genuinely didn't change the outcome of the fight. But I'm really hoping they didn't. Because they're only available for the first two forms, and as you're going to see, the first two forms are pretty easy once you have this level of preparation. Like, even my kind of secondary, less powerful team is completely just blasting through here. So there we go. Even compared to the first attempt, it's looking pretty different. We completely destroyed him. Now, for this one, again, everyone is berserked, and so let's see if I go for kind of leaving them berserked, or do I try to more actively take out the enemies? So here, you're seeing me starting to make use of Holy. This is one of the main things that was different to last time. So Euclid Sextant on, and I'm going to make an effort to try and heal Penelo here. Especially early on in the fight, Balthier is a little less likely to take damage. Let's go. Attack Penelo. Let's see what happens. There you go. So the bubble didn't hit, but we still... The bubble did hit, sorry, but we did heal at least. There you go. So the bubble's still on there. So that's why I'm going to kind of change things up again. Back to Arcturus. And I think I might leave my long-range characters in here. Again, like, less kind of running around and more just trying to take out these Sephira things as quickly as possible. Okay, let's go. Yeah, so I'm letting my Berserk characters kind of still try and do their own thing. And Balthier's working on Vayne Novus here. For a little bit at least, and then I switched it. So I think, again, this wasn't, like, very great execution. But you can see these swords kind of getting away from me. But the long-range characters, so that was a great example. Bosch kind of chased it down, and then he had to stop. But Penelo was able to continue on and do the damage. So now that we can heal basically all of our characters, it's really making a big difference. Even that 600 heal on Penelo is helping. So Azure Vortis, he has been slowed. You can see Vayne Novus has been slowed there. Not immune to it in this form. In comes Contempt. So we're definitely looking much better than the first attempt that you guys saw. Okay, it's on Gabranth. I think Gabranth still has a lot of HP, so I'm hoping that he doesn't use a potion. I really hope. So barrier coming up here. Bosch still doing really well. Yeah, now basically the Sephiras are gone. And we're going to go all out to try and clear Vayne Novus as quickly as possible. I'm really praying this was done before Gabranth uses a potion of some kind. Alright, here we go. Get it back on there. Yeah, the slow is back on. You saw it hit very quickly there. Inviolable Will. I have a feeling Gabranth is going to toss a bloody potion on himself. I really hope it doesn't happen. I was so in the heat at the moment, I just did not notice it at all. I don't even know, like, I kind of want to load this fight back up and just check the gambit menu, like, can you still control his gambits? Might not be able to. Honestly, even watching it back, so much is going on, he might have already done something that I haven't seen. I'm trying to keep my eyes on so many things at the same time. So once again, we're going back to Euclid Sextant, most likely. So again, I'm going to try to heal Pinello here. Take the Gambits off. And go to Pinello. Okay, there you go. So, see if it bubble hits. Yeah, so she still has it activated. It's lasted quite a long time. There we go. Good heals. And he's back out of there. Let's get Berserk Fran back in. Alright, here we go. A Quagga coming in. I saw that. And so now I do have 3 Viking coats. So I can at least do that. But she can't equip it, unfortunately. So she's going to have to take the full damage here. Unless I remove her. And I do this. So having full water immunity is proving nice here. So now I'm trying to get a few buffs back on. So this is kind of almost prep for the next form already. Unfortunately, this gives Gabranth a greater chance to destroy the run. There you go. So Bravery's back on. This is working out really nice so far. Looking like a good run. Just really get those buffs back on as best we can here. Not a problem. Sage's Ring. So you can see here, thanks to the Sage's Ring and Euclid's Sextant combination, we're really changing the whole outcome of this fight. Alright, let's go. There you go, Bubble. Worked on the first hit. Beautiful. And we still haven't used Varn or Ash yet. They have all of their buffs. So now we've got to decide like when to push for the win here. And I think it's going to be now. Get the Berserker stuff back on. So I'm keeping Balthier out there just to sort of keep an eye on any buffs that are lost so that he can try to rebuff before the final form. Hiroga coming in. Lots of magic here. Come on, guys. Get it done. Obviously, like, there's so many buffs to put back on, it's very hard to keep up and just do it for everybody, you know? Ah, there you go. Yeah, he did use a heal, unfortunately. So, yeah. I mean, he literally never got a second attack in after that, so you can call that what you like. If you can go into the Gambits and change it, you should switch them off, but I'm not going to invalidate the entire run for that. I think he used 1 potion the entire time, and then he never landed another hit, and he never got hit afterwards either. So I don't think it changed the fight at all. If anything, if he didn't have that Gambit, he would end up attacking, so it would probably benefit in that context, weirdly. But yeah, now we are in the final form, and I have a lot of buffs going here, and I have a lot of HP. So let's see how I tackle this. Do I already start to bring in like the main trio? I think I'm probably going to try and get as much damage as I can out of my current party, and see how close these guys can get the Undying to the physical immunity section. 1,600. Yeah. Varsh getting some nice damage in here. That's way more than most others. Fran is missing a lot here. I don't know why. There you go. She finally hit, but she did miss quite a lot. So you can see he's lost his bubble effect once again. So this is where the fight just looks very different from the first attempt. Changing to the Sage's Ring, bringing in Euclid's Sextant. Hermes Sandals probably, yeah, to get this in as quickly as possible. As I say, there's so many buffs, and there's only one character to put them on at a time, so it's very difficult to kind of get those going once they're gone. Divine Sword. Again, like, he kind of, I think it's just sort of almost like a buff type thing. I need to look up what that move does. I kept thinking it's going to be some kind of cinematic animation move, but it's not. So his HP is coming back up here. He's got the renewing, he's got like the regen effect as well, which is helping. So Balthier is in like pure healer mode at the moment. He's healing everyone as much as he can. Let's go back in for some more damage. We can put probably some Berserker stuff back on here. Yep. Do even more damage. So this is looking really good so far. And this was literally like, I think the third attempt. Basically, once I got the first game over, I went straight back in. And the autosave triggers from the Undying form, so I had exactly the same situation where everyone was dead except those 3 characters. And so I definitely couldn't win on the second attempt either. But this was the first time I basically came in with this preparation. And it was the first time I had a genuine attempt at trying to survive the physical paling form. So we're already down to Ascension here. And the Magic Wall. Now this attack does hurt. Very cool animation, I have to say. Yeah, it does hurt. And now this is where like we need to try our best to keep people alive just a little longer before that physical paling comes in. But this is where things start to get dangerous. I need to try and get as much HP back as possible before the next phase happens. Alright, let's go. Piercing Holy. Do I get there in time? I think the animation is on... yeah, he already has the Sage's Ring. So but I think the animation is on Barsh, so I think he should be fine. I'm pretty sure he heals from this. Yeah, I remove Fran, and this means that whoever it hits, it's going to be fine. So this is a nice outcome for us here, actually. I'm like, since he's going to take a heal anyway, I might as well maybe get a different buff on there. He's literally going to heal for like 2,000 or something. So let's get a buff on. Nice. 2,500 healed. But I think the haste didn't hit. There you go. Hit this time. So the bravery's gone again as well. You can see like the buffs really start to fall off fast. And it's almost impossible for Balthier to heal people and buff them at the same time. Like, it's a big ask. But still, we've kept Ashe and Vayne in reserve here. Now, what we don't want to do, obviously, is bring them in kind of... like, basically have them lose all of their buffs during the 2-minute physical thing. So, coming up to a really critical part of the fight here. Just so much menu juggling to try and make the most out of every moment that you get here. Trying to keep Penelo alive here. It's getting dangerous. There you go. Keep going. Still got Bubble in effect. Bravery comes in. That's it. Keep going. Okay, Force Barrier comes in. This is immune to physical damage. So now, we literally have to do our best to survive. There is nothing more we can do here. Survive, and if we manage to get any buffs on, even better. So now, this is the attack that killed 2 people in my first attempt. This time I definitely have more HP, but things are going to get dangerous after this comes in. So this is uncharted territory after this move, basically. Here we go. Oof. I don't know if it's percentage, but that was a huge attack. Maybe I had Protect on for some people, because I think I remember like 1,600. Now, Protect doesn't help. Maybe Shell does, but not Protect. So this is where I think I start to go a bit more into healing mode. Now, of course, Vayne can't heal himself. But he can heal Ashe, if necessary. So we're going to try and keep Penelo alive here. But that failed. So unfortunately, we've already survived like some part of it here, so it's not terrible. Get rid of those, give them to Ashe. There you go. Get rid of those, give them to Balthier. So now we are in pure survival mode. I'm going to commit, I think, to having this trio and seeing if I can keep them alive for as long as possible. Yeah, I was definitely starting to sweat a little bit here. Just really hoping that we can stay alive. And well, even after we beat the physical paling, I wasn't sure how powerful like the final attacks were going to be, so I was definitely pretty afraid of what was to come. I wonder if you have Renewing Morion plus Ribbon, does it give you like a double fast regen effect? That I didn't check. Just too many things to think about. But yeah, now we have a situation where Vayne can heal Ashe, and Balthier can heal himself, Vayne, and Ashe. Albeit for only 600 HP at a time. So Balthier still has a lot of work to do here. Okay. But now I think I decide to keep these two out there so that Vayne can keep his buffs. And we have Ashe basically trying to take hits. She's got pretty decent like block rates as a result of her shield. So we need to see if he can keep himself alive here. Because Balthier can't heal from darkness, he can only heal for 600 at a time unless Bubble hits. And if obviously Bubble's already active, he's not going to double his HP and get that big healing boost. So it's only 500 at a time. We need Ashe to keep absorbing these hits. And it's already looking a little bit dangerous, so I'm like, okay, let's bring in Vayne now. So this is secondary healer time. Arcturus, boom, 2,700 healed. Beautiful. So this is all just kind of eating away time, and that's what we need to do. Now it's like, do I basically start to sacrifice some of the characters that I'm not probably going to use for the rest of the fight? Yeah, they're taking like big damage here. 1,500 there for Fran. I removed some of their equipment as well. And I think I might have forgotten to put stuff back on. I'm just praying. I'm just literally watching the top left of the screen and just waiting for that text to say that the physical paling is gone. Do I make a mistake here? I think so. I'm gonna hurt him here. This is the mistake. Or do I catch it in time? I think I catch it in time here. Ooh, that was close. I nearly messed up there. Get the Demon Shield back on. Ooh, that was so close. That was so close. So those are the kind of mistakes that can cost you in this fight. Euclid Sextant. It's really just like scrambling here. Do my best. Stay alive. That was a good hit. But we're doing pretty well here. Over 5,000 HP. Just keep stacking those heals. He got hit for 1,600 though. And it's like, do you try to put Protect on or do you just keep healing? Oof. Yeah, I was getting very nervous at this point. Sticking with it. Now going to try to heal Vayne again. He's going to be the one that's more likely to help us get over the line. So I'm going to try and focus on keeping him healed. Good block there from him as well, by the way. He saved himself from a lot of damage. Come on. There we go. Big heal there. But he's in even more danger now. I really need this physical paling to be gone. We've survived for quite a long time, but because you spend so much time in the menu, it's hard to get a feel for how much actual real time has passed like, in the game. But now it's getting pretty desperate. I need to stay alive. 7-6. Keep going. Good block. Getting back up. Good block again. Lots of great blocks from Balthier. He's done a great job here. The leading man, just doing leading man things. Oof. That was unlucky because like the defensive thing came in there. He only healed for 300, but back again. And still the paling hasn't fallen. Big attack coming in. I was feeling less and less confident at this stage. This attack does a decent amount of damage here. 1,500. Immediately back in. Good block again. The amount of blocks has been really impressive from both here. And so we still have 5 characters here, but Fran is basically like 1 hit away from death. And we've got Ascension coming in. Come on. So now I'm looking to heal again. Vaughn's HP is dropping. Yeah, you can see. Good heal. I'm going to go for one more. Yeah, I'm going to go for one more. Am I? I think I am. Get it. There you go. So a lot of flipping and changing between the Sage's Ring and the Arcturus. But this is keeping us alive right now. So Balthea just doing so much great work in this one. And you're seeing the power of measures in this playthrough. You really are. They've been immense. But can he stay alive? He's obviously being strongly outdamaged here. Not sure what else I can do at this point. I can't heal him any faster. If he gets picked on too much and he can't block enough, then he's just going to die. Okay, no longer immune to physical damage. Let's go. Immediately get another physical attacker in there. Okay, let's see how long these guys can survive for. Get another Berserker Bracer on. And Balthea just trying to keep himself alive here for now. The other two have some okay HP. But he's in that critical thing again where he's not healing as much either. So this is really desperate now. Perfect defense begins. Immune to physical damage. He's immune to physical damage again. For anyone who didn't know or remember that, yes, that is the killer thing about this fight. Not once, but twice, he makes himself immune to physical damage. That's right. So, yeah, at this point, I was like, surviving the first one was already so tough that I'm probably not going to be able to make it here. Here we go again. So you can see for an attack-only challenge, that's why like this fight is really, really tough. As I say, one thing you probably could do is try and get arc scales. But at this stage, as you can see, like trying to put buffs back on is so hard. You're barely managing. I managed to block there. How did I block that? Was that just luck? I don't know if I fluked that. I don't even know what type of attack it is. It's not. I didn't research the attack like that specifically, but sheesh. Amazing blocks there. Ash still has her buffs. I'm bringing her out basically as like another person that, like, so Balthea has less chance of being hit here. He's just getting picked on too much. Ash can also be healed using the Demon Shield, so I'm just like, she's going to lose her buffs, but so be it. Piercing Firaga coming in, so this is where, again, I have to be really careful with my menus. Go in and try to defend as many of these as I can. And we need to switch to the Adamant Vest. Okay. So this is going to be the phase where we're going to be hit with elementals more instead of physical, it seems. But he's really, like, Balthea is on the edge here. Piercing Firaga coming in again. This is a little bit of luck. Like, it depends which ones he picks. If he does a lot of, like, lightning, for example, then things will change because we can completely make ourselves immune to lightning. Now, this move comes in. And I hadn't seen this one before. Does not look good. And, oh, 1,005. He's got 23 HP left, but no longer immune to physical damage. And he gets immediate healing here. This was such a tight part of the fight. Get the Berserkers back on. And we need to make a rush to the end here. Pushing for the win. So managed to survive. This one's definitely shorter. Maybe this one's like 1 minute, possibly. The perfect defense. But Balthea is doing his best to stay alive. Okay. Yeah, the Dispelger you saw basically hit everybody as well. So they've all lost their buffs. I'm like, should I sacrifice? I think at this stage I decide, like, if he dies, he dies. I need to try and get 1 or 2 more heals. So let's see. Trying to heal Vayne here. There we go, 2,600. Big heal, but Ashe is down to 70. He's doing so much damage so quickly. But we did it. The final bit of HP is taken down, and we defeat the Undying. Oh, the end of that fight was so intense. That final move where Balthier survived with 23 HP. Now, what you're seeing here is that I also still had Fran, who could put in a hit or two, and I still had Barsh that could put in a few hits. So realistically, I still had a little bit of room to spare. And let's say if instead of piercing Firaga, he used, I don't know, Aquaga or Lightning or Holy, then I would have been in an even stronger position. So basically with this particular setup, yes, it's a tough fight and you have to do a lot of juggling and a lot of running around to stay alive. It is definitely possible, and you can defeat Vayne, Vayne Novus, and the Undying all back-to-back in the attack-only challenge. A tiny asterisk that, yes, Gabranth did use a potion, and he healed himself for 1,500, but I think it's such a tiny asterisk that I would not re-record this entire thing just to not have that thing happen. As I say, it happened right at the end of that particular form, and literally he didn't get another attack in afterwards, and he didn't take any more damage after that. So in real terms, it affected nothing. But if you're doing this run for yourself and you're a total absolute purist, then I think you've seen from this particular run that it is definitely very repeatable, and you can just go back in. And if you can manipulate Gabranth and Lars's gambits, then yes, of course, you should turn those off. For me, at least, I was so focused on the fight, and it was incredibly intense, that I did forget, but I think I'm going to let myself kind of get away with that and enjoy the fact that I managed to complete the challenge. And what a fun journey it has been. It's been so nice to return to Final Fantasy XII, and one of my favorite things about doing these experiments with the different Final Fantasies is that I really get to appreciate their battle systems in a whole different way, and their mechanics and how these games are put together, and this was no different. I learned a lot about the game, and I got to push it and experiment with it in a totally different way to what I did the first time I played it back in 2017. And so this one was also interesting in the sense that it was the one that I knew the least well out of all of the attack-only challenges I did. And so it was much more of a like, I've only played the game once before and I'm already trying to do it like this. How problematic is that going to be? And I definitely, as I've mentioned, there are some things that I regret. Maybe a few job decisions that I would have done a little differently in hindsight. But all said, I think I'd say maybe like 80%, like 80 to 90%. I was quite happy with how the run went. And ultimately, it was good enough to get the win. Now, what I would be interested in, as kind of laying down the gauntlet for other runners and other people that want to try these challenges, is to try and do this as a pure attack only. And so not just in battle, but in all aspects. So even if you're doing dungeons or anything like that, you are not allowed to use any kind of items or anything to heal throughout the game. Having done it now and understood the game better and how it works, I do think it's definitely possible. It could be a lot more brutal and grindy, but I think if you obviously allow save crystals to heal, which I don't think you have much of a choice, you kind of have to, then I definitely think is doable. And the difference would be, I think you have to flee a lot more in the early game and just kind of only grind levels and experience when it's safe. So it would probably require a lot more grinding, I think. And it would require a lot more of trying to do things as early as possible. So all of this kind of self-healing stuff that I managed to do with the Sage's Ring, with the Demon Shields, with the Dark Shot, and all of that kind of stuff, you would need to get access to those, I think, a lot earlier to enable yourself to have more chance of getting through. But I do think it's definitely possible, and if you are kind of interested in this and you saw this and you thought, well, even this guy who's kind of a bit of a noob at the game managed to do this, then surely the pure attack version should be doable for someone who knows the game better than I do and is willing to put in that grind. I mean, even this version, it took me over 50 hours. There was no, like, using cheats, there was no hacking anything in, there was no save manipulation. Yes, I used the speed up that's built into the game, but outside of the speed up, I did everything legitly, and it was over 50 hours long. So it's definitely the longest and the biggest attack-only challenge for the storyline that I have done for any of them so far. But that was to be expected. And thankfully, I still got it done in 10 episodes. There were 10 long episodes. I think I could have stretched it to 11 or 12, but some of the bits I had to really just start to get a move on and get through them a bit more rapidly. And so hopefully you guys still enjoyed it and you got enough kind of detail and depth and showing of the journey to still make it enjoyable viewing. And with that, I can finally sign off and conclude another Final Fantasy TAC only challenge. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. What about some of the super bosses and the later things in the game? Now, the thing about that is that, yes, there's definitely some things that I can go and fight and defeat, but my ideal goal would have been to basically defeat all of the Espers if it was possible. But one of the Espers literally locks physical attacks out for the entire fight, so you literally cannot do anything. And as a result of not being able to defeat that, that is basically also a branching point of certain other things you can't fight or access as a result of not being able to defeat Chaos. And so unfortunately, there's kind of a built-in insurmountable wall. And it's the kind of thing where later on I might try and see if there's any kind of way to bypass that, if there's anything cheeky you can do with, I don't know, some kind of counter-attack that might still trigger or something else. But I'm pretty sure that you cannot defeat Chaos in this challenge unless you completely break the rules and bypass it anyway. So I might still try it someday and see if there's any of the post-game stuff that I can do. But as I say, it's already taken well over 50 hours to even put this together. And it's already been a ton of work over months to be able to get this together. And so I think I am going to take an indefinite break from this challenge. But who knows, if I miss the game a little bit, which I'm eventually going to do at some point, I'm sure, I might make a little return and just see what else is possible in the attack only challenge. But I think for now, I am going to wrap it up here and call it quits for Final Fantasy XII. Thank you all so much for the support for this series. Honestly, it's been better than I expected. There has been like a general decline in views, and obviously when you try to do a format that is new and fresh on the channel, it does well. And then once you start to repeat the format, even if it's for different games, it tends to kind of not do as well every time you recycle it. And that pattern had generally continued, but Final Fantasy XII kind of stopped the rot in that sense. I think the community is strong enough, and it's a game that generally probably doesn't get represented enough in the fandom in terms of content, that a lot of people did still show up for this one and did support the series. So I truly do appreciate it. It ended up doing pretty well, and there were definitely some new patrons popping in to support the series as well, which I hugely appreciate. If you want to continue to see this kind of in-depth material that takes a ton of time to make, and for someone who does this full-time and pays their bills with their content, it really helps to fund these projects so that I don't have to say, well, instead of taking, 200 hours to produce this series, I could have produced like 3 full playthroughs of a different game. I could probably just make like 10 other videos that would get more views, that just be more lazy and simple and easy to do. These kind of projects, they unfortunately do require a lot more of my time investment, and it takes away time from other content. And so things like Patreon and the support that we get on there is a huge equalizer, and it helps us to continue to invest time in these wacky ideas and challenges and bring them to the table. And so hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and it has inspired some people to maybe try this run themselves or do some other kind of variation of it. And I'll hopefully be back in the future for more Final Fantasy XII content. Thank you all for watching. I will see you soon. Take care.